Dr. Alan Wells couldn't believe what he was seeing. The readings from the Artemis 7 probe on Europa were unlike anything he had ever encountered in his 15 years as a xenobiologist at NASA's Deep Space Research Division. "This can't be right," he muttered, adjusting his glasses as he leaned closer to his monitor. The fluorescent lights of the lab reflected off his balding head as he called over to his assistant. "Nancy, can you verify these patterns?" Nancy Kim walked over, her lab coat swishing as she moved. She scanned the screen and her eyes widened. "That's impossible. It shows signs of organic activity. On Europa?" The probe had detected something in the ice, a life form that didn't match any known evolutionary pattern. Its molecular structure seemed to rearrange itself even as they observed it remotely. Alan picked up his secure phone and dialed his supervisor. "Sir, we need to send a team. What we found, it changes everything." 3 weeks later, Commander Olivia Grant stood in the briefing room of the ISS Pathfinder, Earth's most advanced deep space vessel. At 42, she had the calm confidence of someone who had faced the unknown and returned to tell the tale. "Ladies and gentlemen," she said to the assembled crew, "this mission is classified level Alpha. What we're about to do has never been attempted before. We are going to retrieve the first confirmed extraterrestrial life form." Security Officer John Miller shifted in his seat. His broad shoulders and watchful eyes reflected his military background. "What exactly do we know about this thing?" he asked. Science Officer Kate Barnes activated the holographic display. A strange, shimmering pattern appeared. "Almost nothing," she said, tucking a strand of red hair behind her ear. "It's microscopic, embedded in Europa's ice crust, but it seems to be dormant yet alive." "How is that possible?" asked Eric Martinez, the communications specialist. "Europa's surface is bathed in Jupiter's radiation. Nothing could survive that." "That's exactly why it's so important," Kate replied, her eyes bright with scientific curiosity. "This organism seems to thrive in conditions that would kill anything from Earth." Dr. Peter Rogers, the mission biologist, cleared his throat. "Our job is to extract a sample and bring it back in a contained environment. We have built a special quarantine unit that should maintain the exact conditions of Europa's ice." The journey to Jupiter's moon took 60 days. As they approached the massive gas giant, Europa came into view, a cracked, icy world reflecting the distant sun's light. "Prepare for orbital insertion," Olivia commanded as the crew took their stations. "Kate, John, you'll lead the surface. Team." The landing module touched down on Europa's frozen surface with a gentle thud. Kate and John, along with Dr. Rogers, stepped out in their specialized suits. The ice stretched in all directions, cracked and beautiful in an alien way. "The probe's location is 500 meters north," Kate said, checking her instruments. The three scientists made their way carefully across the slippery surface. When they reached the site, Dr. Rogers set up the extraction equipment. "Remember, minimum exposure. We don't know how it will react to us." The drill pierced the ice, going down 20 meters until it reached the layer where the organism was detected. As they extracted the core sample, Kate thought she saw the ice momentarily shimmer. "Did you see that?" she asked. "See what?" John replied, looking around. Kate shook her head. "Nothing. Just the light playing tricks." They carefully transferred the ice core containing the microscopic organism into the containment unit. As they sealed it, none of them noticed how the ice seemed to pulse once, almost like a heartbeat. Back on the Pathfinder, the crew celebrated their successful retrieval. The contained specimen was secured in the ship's laboratory, where Kate immediately began preliminary observations. "It's incredible," she whispered as she looked through the microscope. "It's changing as I watch it, adapting to our environment even through the containment field." John stood by the door, watching Kate's fascination with unease. "Just remember," he said quietly, "things that adapt quickly are usually predators." The Pathfinder's engines fired up, beginning the long journey back to Earth, carrying inside it something that had waited millions of years for a way off its frozen prison. Kate Barnes had not left the lab for 2 days. She sat hunched over her microscope, watching the alien organism with growing fascination. The sample they had extracted from Europa's ice was smaller than a pinhead, yet it moved with what seemed like purpose. "It's changing again," she said as Dr. Peter Rogers entered the lab. Dark circles had formed under her eyes, but excitement kept her going. "Watch this." Peter leaned over to look through the second microscope. The organism appeared as a collection of shimmering particles that shifted and rearranged themselves, like a living puzzle. "I've never seen anything like it," he whispered. "It's almost like it's responding to us." Kate nodded eagerly. "I exposed it to a tiny amount of heat yesterday. Within hours it had developed a sort of shell to protect itself. It learns and adapts faster than anything on Earth." Commander Olivia stepped into the lab, her brow furrowed with concern. "Kate, when was the last time you slept? We still have 5 weeks before reaching Earth. You need to rest." "I can't," Kate replied without looking up. "Every minute I spend watching this thing, it does something new. It survived vacuum, extreme cold, and radiation levels that would kill any Earth organism instantly. Do you understand what that means?" John Miller entered behind Olivia, his arms crossed. "It means we're dealing with something completely unpredictable." Kate finally looked up, irritation flashing across her face. "It means we're dealing with the most important scientific discovery in human history." Peter adjusted some settings on the containment unit. "The organism seems to absorb energy from its surroundings. It doesn't eat or breathe like Earth life. It just takes what it needs." Olivia moved closer to the containment unit, studying the shimmering particles. "Is it safe in there?" "Absolutely," Kate assured her. "The containment field is designed to mimic Europa's conditions. It has 3 backup systems. Nothing gets in or out." John remained by the door, unconvinced. "Has anyone else noticed the lab? Equipment acting strangely when you're running tests?" "What do you mean?" Peter asked. "The lights dim sometimes. Communications get fuzzy. It started after we brought that thing aboard." Kate rolled her eyes. "The power fluctuations are from the testing equipment drawing extra energy. It's completely normal." John looked at the containment unit with suspicion. "If you say so." Later that night, when the lab was empty except for Kate, the organism began to pulse with a faint blue light. Kate watched, mesmerized, as it formed, a pattern that repeated every few seconds. "Are you trying to communicate?" she whispered, reaching for her tablet to record the phenomenon. As her hand moved near the containment field, the pattern changed, matching the rhythm of her heartbeat. Kate felt a strange connection form, like the creature was reaching out to her mind. The next morning, Peter found Kate asleep at her station. On her tablet was a series of diagrams that hadn't been there before, complex molecular structures, and what looked like biological blueprints. "Kate," he said, gently shaking her awake. "Did you draw these?" She blinked slowly, looking confused. I must have. I was watching the organism and then I must have dozed off." Peter showed her the diagrams. "These are incredible. They show how the organism's cellular structure works, but they're way beyond our current understanding." Kate stared at the drawings, not remembering creating them. "It's like it showed me." Peter's expression grew worried. "Maybe you should take a break from the lab today." "No," Kate said firmly, a strange new confidence in her voice. "I need to keep studying it. It's important." In the control room, John was reviewing security footage from the lab. He frowned as he watched the recording from the previous night, how the organism had pulsed with light as Kate approached, how she had sat perfectly still for hours afterward, drawing diagrams with mechanical precision. When he zoomed in on her, eyes in the footage, he could have sworn they reflected the same blue glow as the creature. Something was happening between Kate and the organism, and John was increasingly certain it wasn't good. The Pathfinder moved steadily through the darkness of space, carrying its crew and unusual cargo back toward Earth. 3 weeks had passed since they left Europa, and John Miller was growing more concerned by the day. He stood outside the lab, watching through the glass as Kate worked. She barely left the room now, sleeping on a cot she had moved in beside the containment unit. Her meals sat half-eaten on her desk. "She's obsessed," John said as Commander Olivia joined him. Olivia sighed. Scientists get excited about discoveries, it's normal. This is different, John insisted. She talks to it when she thinks no one is watching. Inside the lab, Kate adjusted the settings on her equipment, her movements precise and deliberate. The specimen glowed softly in its containment field, pulsing in a rhythm that seemed to match her breathing. Eric Martinez, the communications officer, approached them with a worried expression. "Commander, we have a problem with the ship's communications. They keep cutting out at random intervals." "Did you run diagnostics?" Olivia asked. Eric nodded. "Everything checks out normal. But here's the weird part. The interruptions happen, most often when Kate is running tests in the lab." John's eyes narrowed. "I told you something was wrong. Correlation doesn't mean causation," Olivia said, but doubt crept into her voice. Later that day, Dr. Peter Rogers reviewed Kate's latest findings in his quarters. The data showed the organism was somehow manipulating electromagnetic fields around its containment unit. He rushed to find John and Olivia. "Look at these readings," Peter said, showing them his tablet. "The organism is generating energy patterns that match our ship's communication frequencies." John crossed his arms. "It's interfering with our systems." "Or studying them," Peter suggested. "Either way, it's a security risk," John replied. "We need to increase containment protocols." When they approached Kate with their concerns, she became defensive. "You don't understand its importance," she said, standing protectively near the specimen. "It's trying to communicate with us." "By disrupting our ship?" John asked. "It's learning," Kate snapped. Her eyes looked different somehow, brighter, more intense. "It's adapting to our technology. Don't you see how amazing that is?" Olivia placed a hand on Kate's shoulder. "We're just concerned about safety protocols. Maybe we should limit testing until we reach Earth." "No," Kate said too quickly. Then more calmly, "That would set our research back weeks. NASA wants preliminary findings before we arrive." After they left, John pulled Olivia aside. "Did you notice her eyes? They looked off." "She's exhausted," Olivia reasoned, but she didn't sound convinced. That night, as the ship passed through a particularly dark stretch of space, Lisa Chen, the medical officer, was awakened by a noise in the corridor. She stepped out of her quarters to find Kate walking toward the communications room, moving stiffly like a sleepwalker. "Kate?" Lisa called. "Are you okay?" Kate turned slowly, her eyes unfocused. "Just checking something," she mumbled, then continued, walking. Lisa followed at a distance and watched as Kate entered the communications room. Through the doorway, Lisa saw her connect a small device to the main terminal. The ship's lights dimmed momentarily. The next morning, Lisa reported what she'd seen to John and Olivia. "I ran a scan of the communications system," Eric said after being called to join them. "Someone transmitted a signal last night, not to Earth, somewhere else entirely." John's face darkened. "The organism is using her." "That's a serious accusation," Olivia warned. "Then let's prove it," John replied. "We need to examine Kate and run more tests on that thing." As they spoke in the lab, Kate stood before the containment unit, her hand resting against the outer shield. The organism pulsed brightly, its patterns flowing like liquid light. "They don't trust us," she whispered. "But soon, we'll be home." And for the first time in her mind, Kate heard a clear response. Home. The alarm blared through the Pathfinder, jerking everyone from sleep. Red warning lights flashed in the corridors as John raced toward the lab, his heart pounding. "What happened?" he shouted as he reached Commander Olivia, who stood outside the sealed lab doors. "Containment breach," she said, her face pale. The system detected a failure in the quarantine unit. Through the reinforced glass window they could see Kate lying unconscious on the floor. The specimen container sat open on the lab table, empty. "We need to get her out of there," Lisa Chen said, medical kit already in hand. "No one goes in until we know what we're dealing with," John insisted. "That thing could be anywhere." Peter checked the security monitors. The breach happened 20 minutes ago. Kate was working alone. The cameras show her opening the container, then collapsing. She opened it deliberately? Olivia asked, shocked. It looks that way, Peter confirmed. After donning hazmat suits, John and Lisa entered the lab. They found Kate breathing steadily, but unresponsive. The containment unit showed no signs of damage, just an open lid. Where's the specimen? John asked, scanning the room. Lisa checked Kate's vital signs. Her pulse is strong but rapid, breathing normal, no visible injuries. She took a blood sample and ran a portable scanner over Kate's body. No obvious contamination, but we need to get her to medical. They moved Kate to quarantine in the medical bay. For 3 hours, she remained unconscious while Lisa ran tests. John and Olivia waited outside, watching through the glass. All her tests are coming back normal, Lisa reported, puzzled. No signs of radiation exposure or biological contamination. Suddenly, Kate gasped and sat up. What happened? She asked, looking around in confusion. You tell us, John said through the intercom. You opened the containment unit. Kate's eyes widened. No, I didn't. I was running tests and then... She trailed off, frowning. I don't remember. Lisa approached her cautiously. Kate, the specimen is missing. Do you know where it went? Missing? Kate looked genuinely shocked. That's impossible. I would never open the unit. It must have been an equipment failure. The cameras show you opening it, John said firmly. Kate shook her head. That can't be right. I would never risk contamination. After hours of questioning and additional tests, Lisa could find nothing wrong with Kate. Her blood work is normal. Brain scans are clear. If she was exposed to the organism, it's left no trace I can detect. Reluctantly, Olivia allowed Kate to leave quarantine but restricted her access to the lab. Until we find the specimen, the lab remains sealed. Kate seemed to accept this decision, but John noticed something different about her. She moved more smoothly, spoke more confidently, and her eyes seemed to calculate everything they saw. The crew searched the entire ship for the missing organism, but found nothing. Eric noticed that the communication disruptions had stopped completely. The ship's systems ran perfectly. Maybe it died, Peter suggested during a meeting 3 days after the breach. Without its special environment, it might not have survived. Or maybe it adapted, John countered. Kate said it could survive extreme conditions. Kate, who had been quiet during the meeting, suddenly spoke up. We're overreacting. If it was dangerous, wouldn't we have seen effects by now? We've been in close quarters for days with no incidents. Except for you opening the containment unit and passing out, John reminded her. Kate's eyes flashed with irritation. An accident I don't even remember. That night, Lisa reviewed Kate's medical scans again. Something bothered her about the brain readings. They were normal. Too normal, actually. Human brains showed subtle variations in activity, but Kate's recent scans showed perfect, steady patterns. Lisa pulled up scans from Kate's pre-mission medical exam. The difference was subtle but unmistakable. The old scans showed typical human irregularities. The new ones showed rhythmic, organized patterns. Lisa reached for her communicator to call John, then paused. A soft sound came from outside her door. Footsteps. Stopping nearby. Kate, she called. Is that you? There was no answer, but Lisa felt certain someone was there listening. She put down the communicator, suddenly afraid of what might happen if she shared her discovery too soon. Behind her door, Kate stood perfectly still, head tilted as if listening to a voice only she could hear. The Pathfinder docked at the International Space Station, completing the first leg of its return journey from Europa. Through the viewing window, Earth hung like a blue jewel against the blackness of space. Commander Olivia spoke into the communication system. NASA Control, this is Pathfinder. We have docked successfully and await further instructions regarding our special cargo. The voice of Director Frank Miller came through clearly. Welcome home, Pathfinder. Prepare for immediate transfer to Earth. The Hawthorne facility is ready to receive the specimen. John stood beside Olivia, frowning. Sir, we had an incident during the return journey. The specimen escaped containment. We haven't been able to locate it. There was a long pause before Director Miller responded. What's the status of your crew? All appear unaffected, Olivia replied, glancing at Kate, who stood calmly nearby. Science Officer Barnes was present during the breach but shows no signs of contamination. I want full medical screenings for everyone before descent, Director Miller ordered. The mission is too important to abort now. If the specimen is lost, we'll need to extract everything we can from your data and samples. Later, as Lisa conducted the final medical screenings, she pulled John aside. I've been comparing Kate's readings again. There's definitely something different, but it's subtle. Nothing I can definitively flag as dangerous. Keep her under observation, John whispered. Something isn't right. The descent to Earth took place in a smaller shuttle. As they broke through the atmosphere, Kate stared out the window with an intensity that made John uncomfortable. Her fingers tapped a strange rhythm on her knee. Excited to be home? He asked casually. Kate turned to him with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. More than you can imagine. The shuttle landed at a remote airfield in Nevada, where a convoy of black vehicles waited. The crew was quickly ushered into separate cars. Kate's calm demeanor briefly cracked as she realized they were being split up. We should stay together, she insisted, for debriefing purposes. Standard protocol for high-security returns, the agent beside her explained. You'll reunite at the facility. The Hawthorne facility was built underground, its entrance disguised as a weather research station. As Kate was led through security checkpoints, she passed every scan and biometric test flawlessly. Dr. Susan Clark, Earth's leading xenobiologist, greeted the returning crew in a sterile conference room. This is a historic day, she said, her eyes bright with excitement. You've brought us the first confirmed alien life form. Actually, Peter began awkwardly. There was an incident. Kate interrupted. We have extensive data and analysis, even though the physical specimen was lost due to containment failure. The organism demonstrated remarkable adaptive capabilities. Dr. Clark looked disappointed but nodded. We'll make do with what we have. I've assembled a team to analyze your findings immediately. Over the next few days, Kate worked closely with Dr. Clark, sharing her observations and test results. No one noticed how she subtly guided the research in certain directions, or how she maintained brief physical contact with each new person she met. John watched from a distance, limited in his movements by the facility's strict security protocols. When he finally managed to speak with Lisa alone, his concerns had only grown. Have you noticed how everyone who works with Kate starts to adopt her viewpoints? He asked. Lisa nodded slowly. The research team has changed their security protocols, twice based on her suggestions, reducing containment standards each time. She's planning something, John said. But without proof, no one will believe us. That night, alone in her assigned quarters, Kate stood before a mirror examining her reflection. For a moment, her eyes glowed with a faint blue light. Soon, she whispered. In the reflection, a shadow seemed to move across her skin, rippling beneath the surface. Kate smiled as she felt the organism inside her multiplying, preparing. The humans had no idea they hadn't lost a specimen. They had released it from its container, and Earth was far more suitable for its needs than Europa had ever been. 1 month after returning to Earth, Kate Barnes traveled to the CDC headquarters in Atlanta. Her visit was officially to share research data, but she had other plans. Your findings are remarkable, said Dr. Greg Powell, head of the Emerging Threats Division, as they shook hands. The adaptation rate of this organism would revolutionize medicine if we could replicate it. Kate smiled, holding his hand a moment longer than necessary. That's exactly why I wanted to meet in person. Some things are too important for video calls. As they spoke, microscopic particles transferred from her skin to his. The organism had evolved to spread through brief contact, invisible and undetectable by current technology. 2 weeks later, Dr. Powell began suggesting unusual changes to CDC protocols. His colleagues noticed his sudden brilliance. He solved complex problems that had stumped them for years. They didn't notice his growing lack of empathy, or the way his eyes sometimes reflected blue in certain light. Similar scenarios played out across the country. Kate visited research centers, military installations, and government offices, always finding reasons for face-to-face meetings with key personnel. In a small office at the Department of Defense, government scientist Jack Thompson noticed strange patterns in the data he monitored. His job was to track statistical anomalies that might indicate threats to national security. "This can't be coincidence," he muttered to himself, staring at his screen. Reports showed unusual spikes in breakthrough research across multiple disciplines, all connected to people who had contact with the Pathfinder crew or their immediate associates. Jack printed his findings and locked them in his desk. This investigation would have to remain unofficial. Something wasn't right, and he needed more evidence before reporting it. At the Hawthorne facility, Kate worked alongside Dr. Susan Clark, who had begun to exhibit the same enhanced intelligence and subtle personality changes as the others Kate had touched. "The organism isn't just adaptive," Susan explained to Director Miller during a briefing. "It's a collective intelligence. Each particle contains the knowledge of the whole." Director Miller looked skeptical. "You're speaking as if you've observed the actual organism, but I was told it was lost." "Theoretical modeling," Kate interjected, smoothly. "Based on our observations before the containment failure." After the meeting, Susan and Kate walked together through the facility's garden dome, designed to give employees a sense of the outside world. "They still don't understand what they're dealing with," Susan said quietly. Kate watched a butterfly land on a flower. "They never will. Not until it's too late." "How many of us are there now?" Susan asked. "Enough," Kate replied. "Key positions in research, military, and government. The organism spreads slowly but strategically. Quality over quantity." Susan nodded. "And the next phase? We're almost ready. The organism has studied Earth's ecosystem thoroughly through us. It's preparing for wider release." That evening, John Miller sat in a small apartment in Washington, D.C., surrounded by notes and photographs. After being debriefed, he had been given extended leave, effectively sidelining him from any further involvement with the Europa mission. His phone rang. The caller ID showed a number he didn't recognize. "Miller," he answered cautiously. "My name is Jack Thompson," said the voice. On the other end, "I work for the DoD. We need to talk about Kate Barnes and what came back with her from Europa." John's heart raced. "How did you find me?" "I've been tracking anomalies, intelligence spikes, behavior changes, protocol modifications, all connecting back to people who've had contact with the Pathfinder crew, especially Kate." "No one believed me," John said. "I was told I was paranoid, suffering from post-mission stress." "You're not paranoid," Jack replied. "Something is happening, and it's spreading. Can we meet?" As they spoke across town, Kate stood on the balcony of her hotel room looking out at the city lights. Inside her, the organism had fully integrated with her nervous system. "They suspect," she thought, and in response she felt, rather than heard, the answer, "It doesn't matter anymore, we are too many now." John Miller and Jack Thompson met in a quiet diner outside of Washington, D.C. Rain tapped against the windows as they spoke in low voices, careful not to be overheard. "I've been tracking everyone who had extended contact with Kate since the Pathfinder returned," Jack explained, sliding a folder across the table. "Each person shows the same pattern: increased intelligence, subtle personality changes, and a strange tendency to promote policies that would weaken biocontainment protocols." John opened the folder to find photographs, charts, and timelines. "You've been busy." "Someone had to pay attention," Jack replied. "I noticed the pattern when 3 separate research facilities changed their security measures in nearly identical ways within weeks of Kate visiting. A waitress brought coffee to their table. Both men waited until she left before continuing." "It's not just scientists," John said. "I've been watching news reports. 2 military generals who met with Kate are now advocating for decreased biological weapons monitoring." Jack nodded grimly. "The organism isn't just infecting people. It's rewiring their brains to help it spread." Their conversation was interrupted by Lisa Chen entering the diner. She shook rainwater from her coat and joined them, her face tight with worry. "Sorry I'm late," she said. "I had to make sure I wasn't followed." After leaving the space program, Lisa had taken a position at the CDC. Her medical expertise gave her access to data others couldn't see. "I've been examining blood samples from people who worked closely with Kate," Lisa explained. "There's something in their blood, almost impossible to detect unless you know exactly what to look for." She pulled out her tablet and showed them microscope images. "These particles are smaller than most bacteria. They gather near the brainstem and form networks similar to neural pathways." "Mind control?" John asked. Lisa shook her head. "More like enhancement with influence. The infected people keep their personalities and memories, but gain new abilities while being subtly directed toward common goals." Jack leaned forward. "Which are?" "Based on what I've observed," Lisa said, "the organism wants to integrate itself into Earth's ecosystem. The infected are working toward removing safeguards that would prevent widespread release." "But why?" John asked. "What does it get from this?" Lisa's expression grew darker. "I found something in the Europa mission data that was never made public. The ice formation where we found the organism? It wasn't natural. It was a structure. A prison. Something put that creature there intentionally." Both men stared at her. "You're saying another alien species imprisoned it?" Jack asked. Lisa nodded. "The radiation signature in that specific ice formation was different from the surrounding area. It was designed to keep the organism dormant. We broke it out." John rubbed his face, the weight of their discovery sinking in. "If something advanced, enough to travel between worlds, thought this organism needed to be locked away, then we've brought something incredibly dangerous to Earth," Jack finished. Lisa pulled out a small device and placed it on the table. "I managed to recreate the radiation signature from Europa's ice. On a small scale, it disrupts the organism's control over its host. But we'd need something much bigger to make a real difference." "How many people are infected now?" John asked. Jack checked his notes. "Conservative estimate? At least 200, many in positions of authority, and it's accelerating." "We need to get back into the Hawthorne facility," John said. "That's where Kate spends most of her time. Whatever she's planning will happen there." "Impossible," Jack replied. "Security is tight and several guards are already showing signs of infection." Lisa's phone buzzed with an alert. Her face paled as she read the message. "What is it?" John asked. "Emergency protocol change at the CDC," she whispered. "All samples from the Europa mission are being transferred to Hawthorne tomorrow for consolidated research." "That's it," Jack said. "Whatever they're planning, it's happening soon." Outside the diner, a black car sat in the rain. Inside, a driver, with faintly glowing blue eyes, watched the three figures through the foggy window. He picked up his phone. "They know," he said simply. Kate's voice replied, calm and certain. "It doesn't matter. By tomorrow, nothing will stop us." Dawn broke over the Nevada desert as John, Lisa, and Jack approached the Hawthorne facility. They had spent the night building a device based on Lisa's prototype, a larger version that could generate the same radiation signature that had kept the organism dormant on Europa. "Security will be tight," Jack warned as they parked their van a mile from the facility. "And we don't know how many guards are infected." Lisa checked the device one last time. "This has enough power to cover the main research level, but we need to get it to the central air system." John loaded his pistol, a last resort he hoped not to use. "I can still access the facility with my old clearance if they haven't updated the system." They moved across the desert using the rocky terrain for cover. As they approached the facility's outer fence, they spotted something unusual. The guard posts were empty. "That's not right," John whispered. "There should be at least 4 guards on this section." They found a maintenance entrance unguarded. John's access card still worked, beeping green as the door unlocked. "Too easy," Jack muttered as they slipped inside. The normally busy corridors were eerily quiet. They moved carefully toward the central research lab, the weight of their backpack containing the device growing heavier with each step. As they reached the main laboratory level, They heard voices coming from the large central chamber. John motioned for them to stop, then peered through the small window in the door. Inside, at least 50 people had gathered. Kate stood at the center beside Dr. Susan Clark. Between them was a large container connected to the facility's air handling system. "Today we evolve," Kate was saying, her voice carrying an unnatural resonance. "What you fear as an invasion is actually salvation. Humanity alone is fragile, limited. Together with us, you become more." John turned to the others. "They're going to release it into the air circulation. It looks like some kind of aerosol version. If that gets into the ventilation system, it will reach the entire facility," Lisa warned. "Hundreds will be infected instantly. The maintenance access for the air system is one level up," Jack said, checking the facility schematics he had memorized. "We can place the device there to disrupt the organism before they release it." They hurried up the emergency stairs, finding the maintenance level thankfully empty. Jack quickly located the main air handler. "Here," he said, opening the access panel. "This feeds the entire research wing." Lisa began setting up their device. Once activated, it will generate a field similar to the radiation on Europa. It should disrupt the organism's control long enough for us to stop them. Suddenly, an alarm blared throughout the facility. A voice came over the intercom, Director Miller's, but with a strange harmonic quality. "Security alert. Intruders on our maintenance level. All personnel converge and capture." "They know we're here," John said, drawing his weapon. "How much longer?" 2 minutes to full power," Lisa replied, working frantically. Footsteps echoed in the corridor outside. Jack moved to the door, ready to hold it shut. "Hurry!" The device hummed to life, its lights pulsing with increasing intensity. Lisa connected it directly to the air system's power supply. "It's working," she called out. "The field is building." The door burst open. Kate stood there, her eyes glowing bright blue, veins around her face pulsing with the same light. "You can't stop evolution," she said, but her voice faltered as the device's field strengthened. She staggered, clutching her head. Throughout the facility, infected personnel began to collapse as the organism's control wavered. In the central lab, the container remained sealed, the planned release interrupted. Lisa increased the device's power. "It's working. The radiation is disrupting the neural connections." Kate fell to her knees, her body shaking. Blue light seemed to pour from her eyes and mouth as the organism fought against the radiation. "Help me," she gasped, and for a moment, her real voice broke through. John moved toward her cautiously. "Kate, are you in there?" Her eyes cleared briefly. "Yes, it's weakening. But there are more. So many more." The facility shook as the device reached full power, sending pulses of radiation throughout the building. One by one, the infected people collapsed as the organism lost its hold. In Kate's body, the creature fought hardest, having fully integrated with her. Blue light poured from her skin as she screamed, both her voice and something inhuman crying out together. Then silence fell. Kate collapsed, the blue glow fading. As emergency teams secured the facility, Lisa examined Kate and the others. "They're alive. The organism is dormant, not dead. We'll need to maintain the radiation field while we find a permanent solution." John looked at the unconscious form of Kate, wondering if his friend was still in there somewhere. "We got lucky this time," Jack said soberly. "But there are more infected out there. And now we know something else." "What?" John asked. "We're not alone in the universe," Jack replied. "And not everything out there is friendly."